What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and tonight I'm doing another head-to-head knife review. Today looking at the Cricut Pilar against the Kizer Mini-Sheepdog. Now, a quick monologue before I get started. So when I first started doing the head-to-head videos, I made this whole thing about like I was only going to compare things that should be compared that are in the same ballpark in terms of price. And really it's like price and utility. So if it's the same utility function of the knife, same price, that I was going to do the head-to-head. However, I have broken that rule so many times, and I'm afraid I'm breaking it again today. However, I'm going to make a case for why I'm breaking it today. These two knives are very similar. You can look at them and you can tell that the utility is very similar. They're both this kind of cleaver style blade, both smaller folders, and they're both in that budget category. Now the Kizer's over here in the budget category, the Pilar is like maybe right here. So you're looking at 30, 35 bucks versus 60, 65, so about double the price. However, you're not looking at $30 versus 130 or 230. They're still in that budget category. And so I really liked the Pilar. It's an interesting knife. Really enjoyed it. However, then I got the Kizer Mini-Sheepdog, and that has pretty much kicked the Pilar out of my pocket. I love this knife. And so really the purpose of this video is to say if you are looking at a Pilar, if you are considering purchasing this knife, go for it if you really want it. However, I think there is a case to be made that this knife is better in every category. Not literally every category, but like this knife is substantially better than this one. And even at $30 more, it may be worth saving up and getting something like this because you're probably going to be more happy with it in the long term. I would feel weird saying that if it was like $100 more, but being $30, it's definitely in that attainable budget category. And so that's really why I'm going to do a head-to-head on these knives, even though they're not necessarily within like $10, $15. They're still in that budget category, and I think that it'd be helpful to see them up against each other. With that being said, let's get to the size comparison. So let's do a quick baseline. All right, so, man, this thing's taking forever. There we go. All right, so the Cricut Pilar, 4.2 ounces. 4.3 ounces. So that grew 0.1 ounce. Let's see. 4.3. All right. 4.3 and 3.2. So you are looking at about an ounce difference between these two knives. That is not unsubstantial. Insubstantial, unsubstantial, I don't know. The Kizer has a blade length of about almost 2.5. The Cricut Pilar has a sharpened blade length of about 2. So you're looking at almost half an inch. Why did I put those away? I still got to do measurements. You're looking at half an inch or almost half an inch difference between the two knives. In the pocket, 3.56 versus 3.53, so almost identical. And the width, you're looking at 0.46. Sorry, not width, thickness, 0.44. I am really off tonight. So you are looking at almost identical size in terms of in the pocket, but you're looking at an ounce bigger and half an. Wow, tonight, man, this review might be interesting. You are looking at 1 ounce less with this knife and half an inch less of sharpened blade length. All right, let's just get into the review before this really goes off the rails. Here are the categories: pocket clip scales, overall size, considering the height, width, how does it carry, efficiency, yada yada. Ergonomics, action, detent, blade, steel, lock system, and the intangibles category. Let's get into it. Pocket clip, number 1. All right. Both of these knives have very similar pocket clips. However, I think that the Kizer has an advantage here. And really it's for one reason. It's easier to get in and out of the pocket. Now you would look at these two knives and you would say this one is easier to get in and out until you actually try to. This is pretty tight, and even though it's on these all metal construction, for whatever reason it is very hard to extract from the pocket. And I think it's just how tight it is. The Mini-Sheepdog you might look at and say it's right on that G10. It's a pretty thick pocket clip, so it's going to have some trouble. I've had no trouble with this. It's more springy. It's less tight, I guess, than this one is. And so practically, that's the one I prefer. Visually, I don't really prefer either one of them. I don't think they look very nice, but practically, this one's better. All right, scales. This one is maybe the easiest win for the Kizer Mini-Sheepdog because you have G10 and really nice G10. I don't really understand this pattern here that's on both sides, but I really like G10. I prefer it. I think it's a great material. It's grippy. It's not too grippy. It looks nice to me. I think it handles different elements very well. However, on the other hand, the titanium, man, this is something else. The all steel frame lock here, I've said before, I just don't like all steel knives. It's just not my thing. It's too slippery for me. I can't get a good grip on it. I'm just not a fan. I don't think it handles the elements quite as well as something like G10. And so that's why it's going to be a win. Overall size, another fairly easy win for the Mini-Sheepdog, really on, for two different reasons. One is a full ounce difference, and that is very, very noticeable when you pick up these two knives, and it's very noticeable in the pocket. This guy is insanely heavy in the pocket, especially if you're not wearing jeans, something like that. You're wearing something a little bit more flimsy. Like during the summer, carrying this knife is just a chore. I mean, it just weighs down the pocket. This guy, however, 3 ounces for, what did I say, 2.5 inch blade. That's not terrible on a blade, on a knife like this. That's this kind of this funky cleaver. I don't mind that too much. And so I really think that from an efficiency standpoint, kind of what you're getting and what you're paying for, the Kizer definitely wins. Next up, ergonomics. So this will be the first win for the Pilar. I did say you're giving up a 1/2 inch of blade length, but what you're getting for that is a very nice deep finger choil, something that really falls in the hand very well. Super, super ergonomic. I would like some jimping or something besides all this kind of slippery whatever. However, feels very good in the hand. The Mini-Sheepdog here, I thought visually would be a little bit more problematic than it actually is in practice. It looks like it would be very, I want to say back heavy, but maybe it's front heavy. So it looks like it would be, you're carrying it way back here and you have this big blade, and it is a little bit like that. However, it's not like when I think about the CRKT Grunt that I reviewed, that had an issue where I'm holding so much of the knife way back. This definitely has some of that issue, but it feels so good in the hand that I really don't notice it a ton. I think the balance is pretty good, and it is very ergonomic, but it is definitely no Pilar in terms of ergonomics, so that'll be a win there. All right, action detent. So you have a frame lock and you have a liner lock. Let me open that up so you can see. So the liner lock there and the frame lock there. So in terms of the actual action, not looking at the kind of use of both lock systems. I have a couple issues with the Pilar here. So one is, and I've mentioned this before, this has a tendency to stick pretty hard in that way, especially if you kind of, well, actually I just did it right there. If you kind of do the Spidey, well, I can't do it on camera, let's see. Nope, missed it again. There we go. All right, so if you do that, I tend to have an issue where that sticks and kind of has to be forced over. It's not a one-hand close oftentimes, and I really have an issue with that. It's become one of the biggest annoyances of this knife to me. This one definitely has an annoyance, and that is the fact that the interior liner here that you have to disengage is almost not separated from the scale material, which means it's crazy difficult to get your hand in there and to disengage that lock. If I push against that, there's no jimping, there's no nothing on that, and I have to get a fingernail in there just to close the blade. That is a super, super, super annoying thing about an otherwise almost perfect knife, in my opinion. However, when I look at the actual action of the knife then, this guy just flies open. I don't think I've ever failed to deploy on this. It is just so perfect, and it drops shut. You have this massive blade, and it just drops shut so nicely. Super, super smooth, just feels really, really great. The Pilar is a little bit tough to open. It does open up, kind of in a satisfying way, I guess. Closes fine, but nothing really all that eye-popping. And really, if I pit the two against each other, the sticking is probably more of an annoyance than the disengaging here. And I think the action is such on the flipper here and the Kizer that I would give the advantage to the Mini-Sheepdog. So I would say they're close, but I would give the advantage to the Sheepdog. All right, the blade. So the blade on these is interesting too. I am a cleaver guy, cleaver, sheep's foot, whatever you want to say. This is probably more sheep's footish. This is probably more cleaver. So I like both of the blades a lot. However, again, a win for the Mini-Sheepdog to me for a couple reasons. One, you have this weird kind of fake Spidey hole thing that I'm not a huge fan of. You have just uninterrupted cutting surface here. You have a beautiful swedge right there and one right there, which is super, super nice. Just beautiful blade. This is one of my favorite blades probably that I own on a knife. This guy, absolutely no problem. It's just a little bit small, especially when you compare it to something like the Kizer. So I'll give that advantage to the Mini-Sheepdog. Steel, again, this is a win for the Kizer. So 8 CR13 MOV and not 8 CR13 MOV, which means Kizer wins. But this is, what is this, 154 CM. So all around better steel.